Okay, you ready?
Now go. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to welcome all of you to the Hunker Down for Safety webinar today. I'm Martha Maddox. I'm the Family and Consumer Science Agent here in Alachua County. And I'm really excited to be presenting this webinar with two of my colleagues from the Alachua County Extension Office. And we're going to present in the order that you see here today our topics. The first session, I'm going to be talking about preparing your emergency plan, disaster kits, and important documents. In session 2, preparing your landscape for an emergency is going to be presented by Dr. Clem. He is the Environmental Horticulture Agent 2. And then the next session 3 is going to be preparing your pets and large animals for a hurricane. And this is going to be presented by Amanda Pittman, who is our 4-H Youth Development Agent. And I'm going to turn it over before I get started to Taylor, and he is going to go over some housekeeping rules for all of you today.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. So I just briefly want to familiarize everybody with the Zoom webinar. So everybody, you don't have the ability to share your microphone or your camera as part of our security settings that we have set up, but you still have the ability to communicate with us. You have a chat box that you can put any of your questions in that we can respond to, as well as there's a Q&A little tool that you have on your Zoom screen that you can open up and you can type in your questions as well. If there's any questions you have throughout any of the program, feel free to click on those, type in your questions, and we'll respond to them. We're going to be monitoring them throughout the program. You know, at the end of the program, we'll also have some additional time for Q&A, as well as we'll have an opportunity that we're going to be sending, giving everybody a follow-up survey that we would like to get some additional information from. So without further ado, I'll hand it back over to Martha. Thank you.
Thanks, Taylor. Well, let's talk about preparing your emergency plan and disaster kits and important documents. I am Martha Maddox. I'm a County Extension Agent 4 in Family and Consumer Science with IFAS Extension here in Alachua County. And it's just kind of ironic that we're talking about this subject today while we have 2 hurricanes out in the Gulf. So we want you to be prepared. And if you're not prepared, you know, sometimes it's too late once the hurricane hits. So make sure you prepare your emergency plan, make sure you have your disaster kit, and make sure you have all of those important papers in hand before you start, going with the hurricane. Make sure you're prepared, and when you have a hurricane hit, you're ready to go. Keep in mind that when you're planning this year, it's going to be different because we have COVID-19. And so this means you're going to have to plan earlier. You're going to have to do your shopping probably in different cycles because you may not be able to go all at one time and get everything that you need from the grocery store. So check with the CDC website, and Taylor is going to put it at different points the web links up in the chat box for you to connect with on documents and papers that you will need and web links that you can go to. But be sure to follow all CDC guidelines, especially COVID guidelines in going to shelters. If the shelters are open, a lot of the shelters this year will not be open because of the coronavirus. And also check out the IFAS Extension Disaster Handbook. So let's get started. The question is, are you prepared? When you start planning, it's overwhelming because do you have everything in a kit already? Is it up to date? Have you checked the dates from last year? So this is something you need to do. You need, if you have a kit, you need to plan it and look at your kit and check the expiration dates. If those items in there have expired, you need to get rid of them. If they're close to being expired, take a red marker and mark on that item so you know to use that item first, especially with canned goods. Make sure when you go to a shelter that you're practicing social distancing. Wear your mask. Have your hand sanitizing materials there. Wash your hands often. Also, pay attention when you're shopping. Let's start with your hurricane plan. The main thing that you need to do is 4 simple points. You want to stay healthy through all of this. All of us want to stay healthy. You've got to stay calm. And if you don't have a plan in place, you're not going to be calm. You've got to stay connected. So that means make sure that cell phone works. Make sure you have backup cell phone batteries. Make sure you have emergency contacts. And that doesn't mean every member of your family. That means one person that they're going to be your contact to keep you connected to your family. Keep connected to your community too. Also, stay informed. Stay informed and know which shelters are open, which shelters are not. And know the key emergency information that you need to know to keep you safe and healthy during, before, and after the storm hits. Your evacuation plan. Do you know what zone you're in? Do you know, what the evacuation plan is? And speaking of zones, what zone are you in? Knowing your zone will help you avoid unnecessary evacuation travel. It will also reduce the highway congestion. It will also ease in overcrowding of local storm shelters and boosting public safety. Keep in mind a map that will enable you to take a route unfamiliar to you. So if you don't have a map in your car, go get one. Make sure you have one in your car and in your hurricane kit. And make sure it's an up-to-date current map, because I was cleaning my car out the other day and I had a map from 1998 still in my car. Be sure to stay in touch with your local authorities. Listen to what they're telling you and listen to what they're asking of you. If your local authorities ask you to evacuate, then evacuate. They're in touch with the latest, most up-to-date current conditions, and they're going to broadcast that to you. During COVID-19, I cannot stress the importance of knowing the locations and the guidelines of each of these hurricane shelters, because like I said before, all the shelters may not be open. Some of the shelters may not allow pets, which Miss Amanda is going to talk about pet care. So you want to make sure to avoid wasting time. Know about the shelters. You need to decide if it would be in your best interest to go to one of these shelters, to stay in place, or have a family member or a friend that you can go to. But keep in mind this year, the CDC guidelines to stay safe during COVID-19. Also, make sure you keep your vehicle with a full tank of gas and have an extra can of gas on hand, because when the storm hits and right before, you're probably not going to be able to get gas, or the lines are going to be very, very long. So an extra can of gas is really good to have too for that generator if the power goes out. Plan to take only one vehicle per household when you do evacuate, because this cuts down on the congestion on the highways. Make arrangements to have one family member. I can't stress this enough. This helps cut down on the communication lines so communication lines don't go down and you can keep in contact with your family. And if your family has to leave by chance and get separated, if for some reason you have to, take 2 different vehicles because of work, have a meeting point, have a plan where your family can meet up with safely. And lastly, watch out for power lines. You need to watch out for all the power lines that are down, and if they're down, do not step on them. Just, stop and avoid the broken power lines. And when you're wearing clothes, you need to make sure you wear and you pack clothes that will protect you. So that means, yes, in the hot summertime, you need to have long sleeves, long pants, and shoes that are suitable for walking, preferably a pair of boots. and know where your flood zones are. Now, let's get started and let's prepare that disaster kit. Your emergency kit supplies need 4 basic things. They need food and water, prescription and medical equipment and supplies, your power source, and you need safety and personal items.
Martha, I'd like to ask a question. We had one pop up in the chat box or the Q&A that had to do with coronavirus or COVID. It had to do with safety guidelines. Even though they change and update regularly, are we still adhering to CDC guidelines?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So all CDC guidelines are the rules that we follow. Thank you very much.
Follow the CDC guidelines, and also their county emergency guidelines, because each county's guidelines will be a little different, but they all follow the CDC guidelines.
And I did put, speaking of shelters, I did put in the Q&A as a response. I mean, I'll send it out later as well. It's the Alachua County's list for emergency shelters when they open and how to sign up for that emergency notification, since they control all the shelters within and around the county and do evacuation orders, et cetera.
Okay, thank you, Taylor.
Yep.
Also, let's look at the food and water. Okay, when you start putting your emergency kit together, you need to include at least, and this is the least amount, at least 3 days supply of perishable food for your family to eat. And if your family members have special needs, be sure to include food items that meet their needs. So if you have somebody that's diabetic, don't put a lot of sugary and high carb foods in there. Also avoid foods that will make you thirsty. I'd avoid as many salty foods as you can. And if you're putting a lot of salty food, make sure you add some extra water. Consider we're in the middle of a pandemic, and you'll need to include 2 masks per person for individuals that are 2 years of age or older. You need to have your disinfectant wipes and your spray, your liquid soap, and your hand sanitizer. And this hand sanitizer, it needs to be at least 60% alcohol, and it says that on your labels. Now, when we talk about food items and you're collecting all the food items that you want for your emergency kit, you want to make sure you've got a can opener. If you don't have a can opener, you can have all the cans in the world, and then you've got an issue trying to get them open, and then you're stressed out. So include your can opener and make sure you have ready to eat canned meats such as tuna, Spam, chicken, canned fruits and vegetables, items that your family likes. Also, you want a lot of protein. So it's good to have protein and fruit bars. These are good, very good items to add. Your granola, your dry cereal, peanut butter. Peanut butter is probably the most excellent source that you can include along with dried fruits and also canned juices. Powdered milk. Somebody says, well, you got dry cereal, what about the milk? Have some powdered milk and mix it with the water that you have included, and include extra water for your milk that you will have. Include your family's favorite high energy foods and foods that give you comfort. As much comfort food as you can have, that's what you want. And be sure to include a lot of canned fruits, veggies, cereals, and for your infants, have your infant formula. And you can also have fresh fruits and vegetables, but keep in mind they could, go to waste. Now let's look at cooking utensils. Hopefully you'll have some type of gas grill that you can cook on, or if you have a generator, you'll be able to use the stove in your house. But make sure your cooking utensils you have can be used on gas or charcoal or even on a campfire. Also include eating utensils. Make sure you have some extra forks, knives, spoons, paper plates, cups, and paper towels packed. Also be sure to pack, again, your manual can opener, bottle opener, heavy duty aluminum foil if you're cooking over a campfire or cooking outside to use in preparation. You'll also need to check those propane tanks and make sure they're full, and you have an extra propane tank for your gas grill. And you'll also need to make sure you have enough charcoal and charcoal lighter along with a lighter to help with your camp stove and your fires. But be sure to use caution. When you use your charcoal grills or your camp stoves, use them outside. Do not use them in your house because you'll have smoke inhalation and you also could have carbon monoxide poisoning. Now let's talk about one of the most important things, emergency water supply. You want to prepare and you want to have enough water because you want to stay hydrated. And water is the only thing that will keep you hydrated. Alcohol dehydrates your body. Soda does not, it does not hydrate your body. Both of these products increase the need for drinking water. So when you're packing your water, you want to make sure you prepare and store at least 1 gallon per day for each person and each pet. So consider storing more water than than this for the hot climate we're having. If you have your wife or your spouse or someone in your family is pregnant and people are sick, you also want to include more water for them. You want to at least have 3 days of water. So that would be at least 3 gallons per person per pet. And you want to try to store, if you can, a 2-week supply if possible. And water is one of the things, if you don't have in that emergency kit, I would strongly encourage you each time you go to the store to try to get some water because there are and have been shortages of water. You want to check again, and I can't emphasize this enough. I know I'm repeating it, but those expiration dates. Expiration dates are on water, and you need to replace your water every 6 months. If your water has set in a very hot storage room, you might even want to rotate it every 3 months. You want to store bottles of unscented liquid household chlorine bleach to disinfect your water and to use for general cleaning sanitation. You want to store your bleach in an area where the average temperature stays around 70 degrees Fahrenheit because the amount of active chlorine in the bleach will decrease over time if it's kept in very hot climates. And you also want to store your chlorine bleach away and up where your youth cannot and your toddlers cannot get a hold of it. And keep in mind, water hydrates your body, alcohol dehydrates your body. So make sure you have plenty of water to hydrate your body. Now let's talk about preparing early, because this is where I tell people you can start planning. When you know a hurricane is coming to your area, you need to start preparing and getting your food that's in your refrigerator and your freezer safe. Because the one thing with my job that is the saddest is for someone to call me and say, is this still safe to eat? And I have to say, no, throw it out. So keep your food in the refrigerator and your freezer safe when a power outage hits by doing this. When you first hear that storm is going to hit, go to your refrigerator and turn your settings up higher. Well, turn them lower so that they're colder. Normally, a refrigerator is 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So turn it down to about 34, 32. You may have a little freezing, but it's better to unthaw the food than to have it go to waste. Your freezer's at 0, kick it down a notch or 2, and also know where you can get dry ice. Now, don't go purchase dry ice right now, but know where you can purchase dry ice at. Keep in mind with your refrigerator and freezer, when the power does go out, keep those doors shut as much as possible. The refrigerator will keep food cold for about 4 hours if the freezer, the refrigerator door is not open. Also, refrigerator and freezer food should be kept, we've already went over the temperature, at 40 degrees or below. If you do not have a thermometer in your refrigerator and freezer, I would strongly recommend for you to go out and buy one of these, because when you open that door, the first thing, if you call me and say, is my food safe to eat? I'm going to say, what is the temperature when you open that door? And that is very key, because if the temperature in your refrigerator is above 40 degrees and your freezer is above 0 and there's no ice crystals, I'm going to probably tell you, no, you need to throw everything out in your freezer. And also, because you're going to want to discard all perishables such as meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and leftovers that have been at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or higher for more than 2 hours. Now let's talk about your prescriptions and your medical supplies. These are items that you must have. They're essential. So you need to talk to your doctor or your pharmacist about creating an emergency supply of essential medications. You need to have an up-to-date list of all your prescription medications that also include the information such as your diagnosis, your dosage, how frequent you take your medicine, the medical supplies needed, and your known allergies. So have a list, and in a minute, Taylor is going to put up, I'm going to show you a sheet that you can fill out that's called the CDC Compliance Care Form, and it has a lot of this information on it. If you'll fill this out, give it to one of your family members or your contact person, and you have one on hand in a Ziploc or a waterproof container, this could be very helpful when an emergency hits. So be sure to talk to your doctors and make sure that you can get your medications that you need. Also, make sure that you have your medical devices, such as your blood pressure machine, a CPAP machine, and a cooler. And we'll discuss that in just a minute. And here is your CDC compliance form, that if you will fill that out, it will help you in preparing. Now, let's look at your power sources. A hurricane hits and the power goes out. On the average, you'll experience about 4 hours of power loss, hopefully. And each year we all experience, whether it's hurricane season or not, a power outage. So it's good to have these things on hand. A power outage could, for some people, be life-threatening. So you want to make sure that you have your medical devices and a power backup available for them to use. So start planning now before the hurricane hits. You'll need to identify such items as lighting, safe heating alternatives, especially if it's cold, backup power sources such as a generator, your phone, you're going to need extra batteries for that, possibly a phone charger for your car, appliances, and medical equipment. Emergency lighting, make sure you have plenty of flashlights on hand, maybe a headlamp, because if you go outside, you want your hands free, you can have a light on your head, and or a lantern that you carry or you put somewhere that puts light out. Make sure you get all the common size batteries, such as your AA and AAA batteries. Your hearing aid batteries. If you can't hear without your hearing aid, make sure you have an extra set of hearing aid batteries. Also, your generator will basically, you want to have a generator with at least a 20-foot extension cord. And you want to use your generator outside and make sure you have enough fuel to keep it running. Do not use your generator inside. Make sure you have car chargers for your phones, any batteries. Make sure you have all kinds of power banks and adapters for all your home equipment, and keep those in a waterproof container where you can grab that container and go. You also want to have backup batteries for your smoke alarm, your carbon monoxide detectors. And you say, why? Well, if something happens in your house and a fire breaks out and your smoke alarm doesn't work, you know, that's not good. Also with carbon monoxide, you want those batteries for that. You want to make sure you've got your appliance thermometers for your refrigerator and your freezer. A surge protector strip. If after the hurricane hits and you have spin-off tornadoes with lightning, a surge protector could come in very handy. Also, make sure you have warm clothing, blankets, sleeping bags, and emergency materials to keep you warm, because you really never know where you're going to be sleeping and you might have to sleep on the ground. And make sure you have your weather radio with you too. Now let's talk about safety and personal items. You may need to make sure that you have enough of the water supply. I've went over water enough, but I'm going to reiterate it again. A gallon of water per person. You want to make sure you have enough non-perishable and ready-to-eat food. And this includes your specialty food. Make sure that you have nutrition drinks and ready-to-eat formulas for your infants and people with dietary restriction. You need to make sure if there's allergies that there's not, if somebody's allergic to peanuts, you don't want to have peanut butter for them to eat. You find something else that you can eat. You need to know what the medical conditions are, and you want to make sure you have your medical identification on you. All your prescription medications, you need to refer to your medicine guideline, especially if you're going to a shelter, they're going to require this. Your prescriptions and home use medical devices. You want to make sure that you have your prescription for your eyeglasses, your hearing aids. You want to make sure you have your wheelchairs with you, your walkers with you, contact lenses, any solutions that you need for your contacts, an asthma inhaler, your blood glucose monitors. I know this sounds like a lot, but if you have to evacuate from your home, and these are things that you depend on, you've got to have them, and you've got to have them packed so you can grab them when they ask you to evacuate. Make sure that you have any medical supplies such as your antibacterial wipes, your blood test strips, anything like that. All your first aid supplies. A good first aid kit is great to have. You need to have some non-latex gloves. You need to have some type of fever thermometer that you can, a digital thermometer is really good, and have replaced batteries, and have waterproof bandages, gauze, tweezers, and scissors. You also want to make sure if you have an infant or small children to supply things for them to make this experience, if they have to evacuate or go to a relative, less stressful. So pack a few books, toys, or blankets that makes them very comfortable. Now this to me is one of the most important things, is your paperwork. Have you ever tried to replace some paperwork and you had to get your great aunt or someone to sign off on this paperwork? You might not have the person you need. So you need to make sure that your personal identification, you want to have that in your emergency kit because it's not easy to replace some of these items. And if someone asks for you to be identified, you need to have your passports, your driver's license, your social security cards, green card, military paperwork, and discharge military papers. These items are very hard to replace, and you need to keep those in your kit and make sure they are in a waterproof container. You also need to have medical records. This is in case something happens and you have to go to a hospital or a doctor, that someone knows what is going on if you was to be unconscious and couldn't talk. So be sure to include your health insurance cards, a list of all your dated prescription medications with the dosage. The generic names are very important too, and the pharmacist where you get these prescription filled. List all your known allergies, your vaccinations, your immunization records, any living wills you have or power of attorney forms, your emergency care plans, and your medical devices. Include the manuals, the model, the serial number, and the contact information for the manufacturers of your medical devices. Your vital records. These are extremely hard to replace, and you should have them in a fireproof or waterproof container, or the safe, or at the safety deposit box in your bank. Or You can have a copy of them with a trusted friend, and you notice I say trusted friend or relative, and also you can make a copy of these and save them on an electronic flash drive and have them password protected. But these, and this is just a few of the items. You want to have your birth certificates, your death certificates, adoption records, marriage and divorce certificates, any vehicle, boat, trailer, any of these types of titles are deeds to your house. Last of all, on these important records, you need to have your income tax returns, your family or individual wills, any deeds, stocks, and bonds, and property deeds. You also should include a list of your household inventory, and also it's very good to go around with your now we all have these cell phones that have excellent cameras on them, and you can go around and take pictures, and you can also take videos. This way, if something happens to your house, you know exactly what is there, and you're not thinking about, oh, what was in this room? What did it look like? You know, what's the value of it? And also, big ticket items have the serial numbers and when you bought it and how much it cost. Also have a list of your bank or your credit card numbers. This is very important to have your bank numbers, your credit card numbers, and contact information in case these cards are lost, so you can call, have these cards stopped, and get new cards issued. And you never know when you're going to need any of this information, so keep it handy, make sure it's in a safe container, and also have a list of important phone numbers. And when I say important phone numbers, that could be your doctor's number, your bank's number, insurance agents, relatives, and so on. The main thing is, be prepared now, follow your plan, stay calm, and make sure you follow the CDC guidelines in staying safe. And here are some sites that you can check out for more information. And this is where you can find your CDC Complete Care Form, the IFAS EDIS document on preparing for hurricanes, safe handling of food and water in a hurricane or related disaster, and preparing and storing an emergency safe drinking water supply. If you have any questions or for more information, you can contact your local cooperative extension service, or you can contact me here at the IFAS Alachua County Extension Office by emailing me at mmaddox@ufl.edu. And in the memo line, put hurricane webinar. Taylor, are there any questions?
Yeah, we had a few come in. Going back to your discussion about bottled water, if someone stored, because a lot of us choose not to use like plastic, and we have a lot of water bottles and stuff like that, or like glass jars. If we have like sink filtered water stored in those glass jars, do they have to be replaced at that same frequency that you do the other bottled waters?
They really need to refer to those publications, Taylor, and here's the situation on it. Any jars or bottles that you put water in needs to be sanitized, sanitary, disinfected. You need to make sure that they're clean. Also, you need to mark, if you're storing them, to store in the garage or, in a bedroom or something. Basically, yes, you need to mark those, and you need to rotate those out too.
Thank you. The next question is, we're talking about having extra gas on hand. There is the concern about fumes that can exist with that. Is there safe storage recommendations for around the home? It says, considering fuming and daily heat conditions, where are the relatively safe places to keep containers of gasoline that you get prior to the storm?
You really need to keep them outside in a storage shed outside. You do not need to keep them inside your house.
Perfect.
And do not, because I had a lady that called me about this last year, do not keep them in your car. And if you, you have to get, gas, you really need to not keep gas inside your car and travel. Leave it in the trunk of, not in the trunk, in the bed of your truck. Don't put it inside your truck with you.
Yeah, and I know some people that do travel, and when they do, because if you don't have like a truck bed, you try to limit travel.
Yes,
Plan early to get gas
yes,
if you're not traveling with it, and if you have any type of container like that in your car, don't circulate your air and open your windows to allow for it to air out.
that's right.
Mhm. One other question that we also have is how much cash should we have on hand? Do you have a recommendation about, if we're preparing, is there a recommended cash on hand that you would give?
Each individual will be different. Um, some people, $100 will be enough. If you have a big family, you might need $500. It depends on the size of your family, um, and all like that. But just look at your needs. Look at do you have a place that you can go? Will you have to be at a hotel? And base it on that as how much cash that you will need. And, yes, do not depend on a credit card. Have some cash on hand.
Perfect. And we did have one question that just had to do with the PowerPoints. Yes, at the conclusion of the program today, we'll follow up with an email, and that email will have a copy of all the PowerPoint slides as well as all the different links that were provided throughout the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Taylor. And I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about landscape.
All right. So let me go ahead and get my... Let me get my presentation up and running. I think I have it. Yeah, okay.
Martha, while Taylor's working on that, we had another question about should people include gas for their car when they're traveling or evacuating? Because sometimes there's accidents and stuff like that.
They do not really need to be traveling with gas in their car. If they have a pickup truck, the gas in the back of the pickup truck, but you really do not want to be traveling with gas in the back of your car because that is really unsafe.
The times that I've had to evacuate, I don't go on the main roads either.
Right.
Usually if you go the backcountry roads, you actually move quicker. And even though there's less gas stations, they have a higher likelihood of having gas. So like one example is here in Alachua County, when we had a hurricane come through a couple of years ago, Gainesville was completely out of gas. You couldn't find gas anywhere, but you just went down to Newberry or Archer. Those gas stations they had a good supply.
And and I'd like to add too, that's why have one or two routes mapped out ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Look at, and with the new phone apps that we have, you can find where gas stations are there. Look where gas stations are at. And that's why, again, it's very, very, very important to make sure that you have extra gas on hand. Your tank full rather. And that way, if your tank is full, you know about how far it's going to get you, and then get gas, even if it's a fourth tank's all you need. Fill up that tank. Don't wait till it says empty to fill up because Absolutely. You may not make it. That's the other thing. But have that map with you and have your plan mapped out and Absolutely. Know where the gas stations are.
Absolutely. All right, so I'll go ahead and I'll jump into the next section of the webinar. My name is Taylor Clem. I'm the Environmental and Community Horticulture Agent. And one of the important things that we think about, and I'm going to have some participation in this. So I'll have the chat box open and I'm ready for your responses. But anyways, so what I want to talk to you all about is preparing your landscape. So if we're thinking about our homes, our places of residence, one of the biggest concerns that we have is the integrity and protecting our property. And some of the biggest, most damaging things that occur within during storms relate to downed trees, broken branches, which leads to power outages, damage to homes. So we actually know that by properly managing our landscape, and following some basic best management practices, we can severely reduce the threat and risk associated with wind-related damage during a hurricane. So a lot of those things that we can do start at the very get-go, or start at the very beginning, or stuff that we can do throughout the year as regular maintenance, so it makes it easier on us once we know a storm is coming. So anyways, I want to, part of this, I want to talk about what is a resilient landscape, or preparing a resilient landscape. So before we jump in too far, I want to show you this. In the chat box, I have it open. I think it just closed on me. What is this? What do you see within this image? And Amanda, I can't get the chat box to open, so you may have to relay what people are saying, or Martha. Who knows what that is?
Lots of mangroves.
Yeah. All right.
Lots
cool.
of mangrove.
Lots of mangroves. So there's a lot of different examples that I like to use, but why are mangroves so important during a hurricane? Put in the chat box what you think.
We've got one answer of they provide buffering. Another is that they have an incredible root system.
Mm-hmm.
The root system, yes, they do have an incredible root system.
The roots hold.
Yeah, roots hold.
Protect the coast.
That's exactly right. So the root system, essentially mangroves on the coastal ecosystems, they reduce a lot of that storm surge. Obviously, they provide critical habitat for coastal ecosystems, but they reduce the storm surge. They help protect the shores against erosion. Those mangroves help protect our shores significantly. So you all have probably seen people in the Keys when storms are coming through. People are anchoring their boats within all of the channels of the mangroves, because it displaces a lot of that energy that's associated with the waves of the storm. So we refer to something like this as an ecosystem service. So this ecosystem service, like what we see within this mangroves, is the environment is giving us benefits. And in this case, one of these benefits is it's helping protect the shores and our properties by helping reduce the threats of water and the energy associated with that water and the waves. So that benefit, is, like I said, is what we call an ecosystem service. And that's just one example, but there's a lot of different ones that we have in the landscape, and helping maintain trees and properly managing our landscape can help create what is called a resilient landscape. So as we go through this portion of the webinar, I want us to make sure that at the end, we feel comfortable or confident to be able to say, how do I prepare a hurricane-ready, resilient landscape? So I want to start by answering that question. What is a resilient landscape? A resilient landscape is a landscape that recovers quickly from extreme events now and in the future. And those events could include like drought, extreme heat, storms, hurricanes, flooding, etc. So anything that happens that can have an impact on a landscape, it could be disease as well. It's the landscape's ability to recover quickly. So if you manage a landscape properly, it has the ability to be resilient, so it can recover appropriately after major storm events, as well as it can reduce our threats that we can have from wind-related damage. So one of the big keys that we talk about with resilient landscaping is, how do we work with landscapes rather than against them? So when we're trying to work towards a resilient landscape, especially with considering hurricanes, a resilient landscape can help risk reduction, help reduce the risk of damage that can occur. So that has scalability and diversity. So what happens, you can have impacts at small scales and very large scales. And a lot of that also relates to diversity of plant selection and how we're managing with the landscape. But there's multiple co-benefits, so how they can, within those landscapes, how can we benefit from landscapes, and how can the landscapes benefit from us, as well as regeneration. So if there's an impact on the landscape, how quickly can that landscape regenerate and recover from any type of damage that it may have had. So when we talk about preparing our landscapes for a hurricane, our ultimate goal is just to reduce the threat of wind-related damage. So we have a three-tiered approach that we're going to go over. That's that design, maintenance and preparation, as well as recovery. And then I'll highlight some of the key lessons learned that UF has learned through our research from looking at data from past hurricanes. But those lessons learned could be really good jumping points for like, what can we start doing now, tomorrow, and in the future to help ensure that we have a resilient landscape that's prepared for hurricanes. So the first thing I want to talk about is, let's go ahead and jump into design. How does plant selection have an impact on our hurricane-ready landscapes? So we do know that a lot of trees have a very high wind resistance and some have a very low wind resistance. So some good examples of high wind resistant trees are some like our live oaks, cabbage palms, Yupon hollies, sparkleberries. That's just a collection, just a handful of them. But we also have very low resistant, wind resistant trees, and we see a lot of these in the landscape. So like Chinese elm, it's a wonderful tree, but it has a very low wind resistance. Pecan trees are very low wind resistance, Bradford pears, as well as tulip poplars. So there's two types of failures that we end up seeing with with trees, and that has to do with breakage. So that's just major branch breakage, or as well as topple, and that's where the trees completely fall over. And this is what ends up leading to that wind-related damage associated with hurricanes, with electricity issues, as well as issues associated with home damage, broken windows, etc. So when we go and make our initial plant selection, we want to really think about what plants have a higher wind resistance versus those that have a lower wind resistance. Any trees or anything around our houses, we typically don't want to have trees just in general, especially large trees. You can have some small trees. You can have some small trees around the 10, 15 foot range to the house. But beyond that, you don't want any trees that have a low wind resistance in close proximity to the house, around 50 feet or so, 40 to 50 feet. Just in case there's a major breakage or it topples, it's not going to hit your house. Try to keep it away from, if it were to fall, where will it end up landing? Is it going to land on something or break branches that'll land on something that can cause damage? We do not want those close to the homes. If you are going to be putting trees closer to the homes, you need to have a high wind resistance tree. But of course, you know, when we're looking at our landscapes, that's great. You know, if we're trying to do plant selection, when we're doing that initial plant, that design, but a lot of us have landscapes that are already in place. They're already well established. So a lot of it really comes down to maintenance and care. So some of the other things that we want to do before we jump into maintenance and care is talking about some other strategies when we're landscaping or designing a landscape. Wind breaks are always amazing ways that we can actually use trees to our advantage. Wind breaks, we use a lot of those, and you can kind of see it within the image below. But wind breaks, they're just natural tree plantings. And in this case, it's going to be a combination of high wind resistant trees. And you can have some other shrubs. It can look very natural, or it can be something that's very ornamental or planned. But those wind breaks, they actually lift the wind back up into the air, and it significantly drops the velocity of the wind. So that wind damage to the home that threat can be reduced by planting some natural wind breaks. That's a significant benefit that we can have from just proper plant selection and planting. But also plant your trees in clusters. An individual tree, no matter what its wind resistance is, has a higher susceptibility of breakage versus trees that are planted in groups, because they have the ability to kind of collect and allow that energy to dissipate much better than an individual tree. Also plant variety. Planting those varieties, it allows, you know, there might be a high resistant tree or there might be a low resistant trees, but planting variety can really help give you variability in height of where that windbreak might be, but that variety also, you know, some trees, you don't want to have the wind end up breaking a lot of your low wind resistant plant material and not have other trees around the landscape. So having that diversity is, you might end up having some trees that are damaged, but you have a lot of others that are not. So rather than losing everything. So having variety helps give you a little extra protection in that long-term landscape maintenance. And that last one is, oh, I have 2.2s I see there. And the last one is trees close to the homes, like I said earlier, must have a high wind resistance. And we do have an IFAS document that shares a whole list of trees that are the high wind resistance, medium to high, medium to low, and then low wind resistance. And that is all done based off of inventory of plant material in trees based off of what broke during storms. So looking at an inventory of hurricanes that come through the state, we've identified what trees have the higher susceptibility of breakage versus those that have the lower susceptibility of breakage. So let's go ahead and talk about maintenance, because these are the things that we can do year round right now to help reduce storm risk or impacts, or hurricane risk and impacts in our landscapes, as well as, again, protecting our homes and allowing for our landscapes to be more resilient and protected. So one of the big things is pruning for wind resistance, and the second one is just general preparations for a storm. So pruning for resistance, that's going to be a big one, because a tree, as it has all of its branches, think of it as a big sail. It's a big, big sail. And what's going to happen is that wind's going to push on it and push on it and push on it. And if it doesn't have a way for the wind to easily move through or help lift that wind up in the air, it's going to lead to breakage within the branches. So pruning for wind resistance is just a general, another term that we use for just proper pruning of your plant material. And I'll talk a little bit about that. This image on the right, have you all heard of hurricane pruning for palms? Has anybody ever tried to convince you to do that within your landscapes? Like if you have someone maintaining your landscape? No, good. So hurricane pruning, it is where people, like on the image below, where they prune off all the palm fronds of palm trees and you just have a little bit at the top. And the belief is, or the thought is, that, oh, there's less palm fronds, so it's not going to collect as much wind, so it's not going to topple over as easy. Well, with palms, that actually works backwards. When we over prune, we actually can damage the meristem or the inner parts of the palm tree. That actually significantly decreases the palm tree's wind resistance. Palm trees have evolved in landscapes with hurricanes. They are naturally wind resistant. We only recommend, if any palm trees, we only recommend pruning any dead brown fronds from the palm trees, just so the wind doesn't knock them down and they end up being blown across the landscape and become a projectile. So that's just remove the dead fronds, don't touch anything else. If anything else that you touch that's alive, you're actually doing harm to the tree, then good. And that's they call that hurricane pruning, but don't do it, don't fall for it. Other things that we can do is looking at the trees within our landscape. What are things that we can do to help prune for that increased wind resistance and help preparing our trees for storms as well? So I kind of like this image on the right, because what this image is showing is a different cutting scenarios of what we need to remove from trees. Because if we remove any branches or from trees that are, they look like they're dead, diseased, or damaged, let's go ahead and cut those out, because they have a higher susceptibility of breaking and falling compared to the healthy parts of the tree. Take out any water sprouts. So water sprouts, those are actually like little vertical branches that start to pop up out of the other branches of the tree. Any branches that cross and rub, cut out those branches. Those are going to have a higher susceptibility of breaking. But also clean off small branches that are cluttering trees that kind of end up blocking some of that air circulation. Because what you're going to end up doing is, if you're pruning your tree, you're going to prune out the branches that have a higher susceptibility of breaking. And by doing so, that improves air circulation, and it's going to allow for that tree to be stronger and increase its wind resistance. But it's also really important, and I'm going to go back to this previous slide, it's always really important to think about safety when doing any type of landscape pruning or maintenance. So the link at the bottom, whenever we recommend, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a bit, but whenever we recommend working on trees or doing any pruning, it can be very dangerous. Working on shrubs or small plants like that, that's a significantly reduced risk. But working on trees and pruning branches on trees is very, very dangerous. So we always recommend that if you're going to be doing something that you are not comfortable or confident enough to do safely, we recommend that you contact an ISA. So and that's ISA is International Society of Arboriculturalists. So ISA certified arborist. So those certified arborists, they have to be typically licensed. They have advanced education and training associated with proper tree maintenance and care. And they have the ability to come out and do a lot of those cuts and pruning that can be otherwise too dangerous without having that proper training. And to find any type of ISA certified arborist within our area, that link that's below, www.treesaregood.org/find an arborist, that works worldwide. That link is an online directory that can find any certified arborist all around the world. And when you go there, you can select United States, Florida, Alachua County, and it'll pull up all of the ISA certified arborists that work within this area. It gives them their names, the company they work for, as well as their contact information. So that's an amazing resource for you if you need to do some tree maintenance in your landscape. It's important to make sure that you're getting that ISA certified arborist, and that's a great resource for you to have. But it's also important, timing is going to be critical. So whenever you're working with an arborist, think about doing any maintenance you have in the spring or early summer. One of the issues that we always have, or arborists always have, is there's a hurricane on the horizon, and all of a sudden people are making their phone calls to those arborists to get work done on trees. But they'll take jobs, but they can only do so much at a certain time, over a certain period of time. So there's a very high likelihood that you will not get your trees worked on in enough time for a hurricane to arrive. So it's very important to have regular pruning maintenance on your trees. And the more frequent you do it, at least once a year or every other year, there's a lot less that needs to be cut out and pruned, and you're going to have a much, much healthier tree that has a higher wind resistance. And then you can make sure that your trees are pruned in time for a hurricane, so you're not scrambling to try to get a tree taken care of or removed before a hurricane arrives. So let's talk a little bit about immediate preparation. So immediate preparation is, there's a storm coming. What do we need to do to help prepare our landscapes? And when I'm talking about the hurricanes coming, is we have a few days out before any type of evacuation orders are given. These are just little things to do just to help prepare and help protect your landscape and your property. Look for any dead or broken branches that you can easily find, and safely remove. Go ahead and do that. Just to kind of get them out of the landscape, secure them, remove and secure any type of debris in your landscape, because we won't have yard waste pickup, or there might not be enough time for that yard waste pickup to come and get to get that yard waste. So making sure that you secure that somehow outside. Move any exterior furniture or hanging baskets or containers inside of a home. Hanging baskets, they do leave very easily during a hurricane. And they can be anything left out in the landscape can be very dangerous. And as well as any other type of loose items, trampolines, anything that's not permanently attached to the ground, make sure that it is secured in some capacity to the ground or some type of supported structure to ensure that it doesn't blow away. Lastly is clean your gutters. If you have gutters, make sure that they're clean so water has the ability to exit that drainage system very quickly. And then lastly, even though it's not technically your responsibility, if on your street you have any storm drains, go and make sure there are no leaves or any type of debris within those drains, because by clearing that out, that's going to ensure that any stormwater can drain quickly and properly. A lot of times we'll have some storm-related flooding associated with clogging of storm drains. So by helping remove some of that leaves and clutter that builds up on those gutters or the storm drains, can really help reduce the potential impact of flooding within your community or your neighborhood. And lastly, we'll talk a little bit about recovery, but it's important that I'm not really mentioning the shrubs or anything like in that landscape, because you may have they're very low potential of toppling with them. Breakage may occur, but it's very small breakage. It has a very low weight or concern within the landscape, and there's not much that you can really do in preparing the shrubs or anything like that. For large shrubs, you can do some of the pruning techniques to allow for them to help improve their wind resistance, but beyond that, you're just leaving a lot of those shrubs in ground as place. But anyways, so post-hurricane or post-storms, let's talk a little bit about recovery. Safety first. Safety first. A lot of times people are using chainsaws. Make sure you're wearing appropriate PPE, gloves, goggles, long sleeve shirts, pants, earplugs. Appropriate PPE is going to be very, very important, because post-storms, there are a lot of injuries associated with improper recovery efforts, especially associated with chainsaws, but also axes, hatches, and just regular manual bow saws or folding saws. So safety first in any of those situations. Also, depending on the severity of damage done to or around your landscape, always check for power lines, downed power lines. You don't want to unintentionally become in contact with one of those, obviously. Even if the power is out, you do not want to be in close contact with them, because you never know when that power is going to be brought back on, or if there might be some type of surge that comes in. But anyways, safety first. It's really important that that is on your mind if you go outside after a storm, depending on the damage that is done. And going back, I always recommend that if you have downed trees, trees that are now leaning, trees that are currently leaning or leaning in result of the storm, you need to get those taken out immediately, because they're at a very, very high risk of falling. So that's why it's going to be very important to call any type of ISA certified arborist. And again, that's the treesaregood.org website. It's going to be very important to ask some of those arborists very key questions. Are they insured? Are they insured? There can be times where you can just have some regular person come on in, and they are non-certified ISA arborists come in and do tree work. They may not be insured appropriately. So say there's an injury on the work site on your property, you are technically liable for those injuries as part of your home insurance. So make sure that they are appropriately insured, because they will have workman's comp available, they will have workers insurance, as well as property insurance in case they do something that causes damage to your home. So make sure that they are appropriately insured. Also, do they know the ANSI guidelines? And those ANSI guidelines, those are essentially best management safety practices and protocols associated with properly removing and clearing trees. Also, always ask them about expected cost, timeframes, procedures, what kind of procedures are required or involved. Like in this image on the right, that's a tree climber. If you have tree climbers coming in, your cost is going to be very high. If you have anything with a crane coming in, your cost is going to be about the same as the tree climbers. So just be very aware that based off of what needs to get done, and get that clearly written out, so you as a consumer are protected, so they just don't, the day of, decide to bring in tree climbers unexpectedly. So those are the types of questions that you do want to ask during that recovery period. But similarly to right before a storm, during that recovery period, a lot of arborists, they are doing landscape triage. So more than likely, you'll find them working with public utilities, emergency services, to ensure that roads are clear and open, to make sure that power is getting back on. So things that are around your landscape, you cannot expect to have an arborist come out immediately. It's going to take some time before they actually show up.
Taylor, you have a question about, should you ask for written proof of insurance, since anyone could just say that they're insured and maybe not be insured?
Yes, as part of a contract, you can always request a copy of insurance or proof of insurance from them, so you can see what their coverage is. If they do not want to show you that, then do not hire them. When I used to work with professional contractors, part of our bidding requirements was they had to include copies of their insurances or proof of insurance. Otherwise, that was a requirement for them being hired. Otherwise, they would not get hired at all. So yes, feel free. You have the right to ask them. And if they don't want to show you that, don't hire them. It's not a risk that it's comfortable for anybody to take. Very good question. So let's go jump over some of like those big key lessons learned from what we have learned through extension over the years. Higher the speeds, more likely trees will fail. Groups of trees survive better than individual trees. Some species are more resistant than others. Palms have a higher survivability. Pines can decline over time. So a pine may not look damaged immediately after a tree, but you could end up seeing wind-related, hurricane-related damage associated with it 2-3 years down the road. So it's always very important that if you have pines in your landscape, always still keep a close eye on them, especially after big storms. Leaf loss on trees does not mean decline. We'll have winds come in and completely defoliate trees, take off all the leaves, but that tree is going to recover, be happy and healthy. It'll sprout out new leaves in no time. Native trees do survive better, and that's because they evolved within high winds in this ecosystem or environment. So our native trees are going to have a natural resistance to hurricane damage. Older trees are more likely to fail than younger trees. Unhealthy trees are predisposed of damage. Older, poor structured trees are more vulnerable. And when I say structured, that's like the crossing branches. Trees are just not pruned appropriately. So poor structured trees, you can have a high increased likelihood of breakage. And that well-pruned trees survive much better in the landscape. But it's also important that you also start early, at least build it into your regular maintenance, and not wait until the day before a hurricane comes or a few days before a hurricane comes and try to get this done. Because even when you prune landscape or prune trees, it's very stressful to the trees. You want to make sure that they have enough time to recover before you add another stressor to them. So we looked at kind of like that 3-tiered approach, looked at design guidelines, at maintenance and preparation for a landscape, recovery recommendations for landscapes, as well as those key lessons learned. And what ultimately it does is, by taking these steps, you're creating a landscape that is very resilient and it recovers quickly after storms, or it has the ability to withstand storms with very minimal to no damage. So moving forward, feel free to reach out to me at any time. If you have any questions, my email is on this screen, as well as we have our Master Gardener Volunteer Help Desk. That's the mag@alachuacounty.us. Follow us on our Facebook page. We have a YouTube channel where we'll actually be posting a recording of this entire webinar. And we also have a podcast, and we're going to be recording a podcast specifically related to this episode next week. And our podcast name is Extension Cord. And you can find that on any of your major podcast carriers. But I'm done, so feel free. I'm available for some questions. Let let's see.
Taylor, you've got 2 questions in the question and answer. Are you able to see them or would you like me to read them?
I can see them. I have them open. So the first one I see is, any suggestions on how to deal with situation where the dead limbs belong to your neighbor but will impact me when they come down? So yes, that's a very, very common issue, is a tree, a dead or dying tree is on someone else's landscape, and there's a concern that that tree has the ability to impact your landscape. So technically, if the branches are hanging over your property, you have the ability to remove those branches. Of course, I always encourage people that if you want to have good neighbors, communicate that with the neighbors that you're going to do that. I've had calls before where people call and say, someone's cutting down my branches on my tree, but technically that branch is in the other neighbor's property, so they have the ability to cut those back. So always communicate with your neighbor. There are some situations where, depending on where you live, county code or city Gainesville code may have specific policies associated with tree maintenance to ensure that there's going to be no damage associated with hurricane related damage. And in some situations, it can be recorded, and the homeowners insurances will end up fighting over it on who owes who money. The other question is, if your neighbor has had an arborist tell them 2 years ago that they should remove a 75-foot dying oak tree that could land on a neighbor's house, but they are keeping it off, is there anything the neighbor can do? Again, if it's completely on their property, no, not really. The only thing that you can do is communicate it with the neighbor. I don't know if this is a good recommendation or not. You can always communicate it with your homeowner's insurance, and the homeowner's insurance may reach out to that specific homeowner and maybe their homeowner's insurance to kind of say, hey, this has to be done, or we'll be coming if there's any, I'm not, so it could be worth reaching out to your homeowner's insurance, but that's an important thing, is always have good conversations with your neighbors, because trees on a neighboring property have the ability to cause damage on your landscape or your home. Great questions. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and we'll pass it off to Amanda, and she's going to jump right into the last section of our program today.
Thanks, Taylor. So while I'm pulling up my presentation, can our participants put in the chat box what kind of animals you have and how many of them you have? So I'm seeing cats, dogs, birds, a toddler, chickens, fish, horses, cattle. Okay, so we should be covering a little bit of all of that today. And we'll a lot of the things, it's funny, Martha was talking about how to prepare humans for hurricanes, and so much of it is relevant to our animals as well, whether we consider them to be our four-legged children or their livestock. A lot of the same things like health records and preparing food and having a clean space to hold food are all relevant for what we're about to talk about. And then, Taylor talking about how making sure trampolines and flower pots and all this stuff is put up is extremely relevant as well, and something I'll cover. So I feel like this is a great way to cap off the end of our webinar today. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. I'll kind of be trying to cover a lot. And later on, if you guys have more in-depth questions too, I'm happy to answer those as well. So I kind of had to laugh whenever I looked out my front door one day. I saw this where it was completely storms on one half and bright and sunny on the other half. And you have to just think that's Florida about 3 or 4 o'clock every afternoon. You can just count on those rain showers. And during hurricane season, it's the same thing. It's not if it's going to come, it's when it's going to come and how bad is it going to be. So I thought that was a really relevant picture to kind of kick off today. Before I get started, I want to share a little bit about me to kind of give you the context of where I'm coming from and my knowledge base. So I'm your 4-H agent. So I do all the youth 4-H programming in Alachua County. And on any given day, that includes different things. Here lately, it's all virtual, but usually most of them are in person. And we do 4-H clubs, we do lots of school enrichment, community service. You think about it, we have all kinds of volunteers and members across the county. 4-H is a very neat program that I highly recommend looking into if you have, or if you know of youth between 5 to 18. But then personally, I went to school at University of Florida. I got my bachelor's in animal science, specializing in beef. But my passion is horses. I grew up riding horses, and I got the bug at 4 and it never went away. And so after I graduated with my bachelor's, I really decided that I love the content, but I want to be able to share it with people. And so I went back for my master's to learn how to teach agriculture and leadership. And then I'm going back again for a third time, trying to learn a little bit more and get my PhD on how to communicate agriculture better. So hopefully I do a pretty good job doing that today. As you can see, here's some pictures of my 4-legged and 2-legged children at home. My husband also works in Extension in Gilchrist County, so we very much live and breathe Extension in our household, and he does ag. But we also have too many chickens at our house. We have a little bit of cattle that we have. We have 4 horses and 2 ponies. And then 3 dogs. So, you know, we kind of cover the span of what we're talking about there. You know, I don't have parrots, but we do have some chickens. So what I'm going to be talking about is, you know, from what I've researched, but also from my personal experience in preparing our animals for hurricanes or storms. So some things that we're going to get our nose into today are talking about facilities, needed supplies, what things you need to be thinking about getting together, much like Martha was talking about, identification on animals, and evacuation. And, you know, you'll see I put a lot of my livestock pictures on here, and I have a slide especially for companion animals, but a lot of them really cross over. I'll have a good argument about how horses are the most fragile animal that's around. And so a lot of things I'm going to talk about really cross over, whether it's a cat or a dog that you might be preparing for a potential storm. One of the biggest things when talking about animals is what facilities you have. And if you're in your house, that's a little different. But if you're outside, there's some things you need to consider. And Taylor brought up a lot of these. So electrical lines. I know whenever Irma came through, we had half of a water oak fall out of the tree, and it hit our power line. And so we had a fresh, hot line in our backyard. And so for the 2 weeks that it took for GRU to get out there, we couldn't let the dogs out the door. And we really had to be cognizant, because even if we opened the back gate or something, those dogs would try to go out towards the back. So thinking about, okay, if that tree fell in this location, is that something I need to consider and make sure that my animals don't go near? Trees are a huge thing that Taylor covered. Thinking about, can you do some pruning now, removal, and a lot of that comes into too, you know, when you're planning your house, when you're planning on where you're going to put your pastures, because the last thing you want to do is build a brand new fence and have a tree fall over it, and then your animals are out. The fence didn't do much good. And during a lot of our hurricanes, that's something that happens to our ranchers. That's one of their major problems. So in thinking about, is it a problem that you can, you know, do some things before a storm ever comes to remove that as a threat? A lot of people as well, if they're on a farm, we try to do it on almost all of our surrounding property, is we have a second fence as well. So we have our pastures, but then there's also a property fence. So that's something to consider as well, even if you have dogs you let loose or something like that. You also need to be keeping note of when we have these really heavy storms that come in and we get a couple inches within an hour or 30 minutes. What does your land look like, or your backyard look like? Does the water come right up to your porch? Is there a place where you feed your animals that is just completely drenched with water? Because a lot of times when a big storm comes, it's going to look very similar and probably even worse. And a lot of times those low-lying areas are popular locations for animals or popular traffic areas. And so you want to try to keep your animals out of that area, or think, is there other things that I can do now to be doing that? Because whenever storms come, your animals, if they're outside, they'll go looking for high ground. But fire ants also go looking for high ground. So that can be a bad combination put together. So just thinking about what are some things that I can do. You know, do I live near a lake or a river where there's lots of snakes? Do I have to worry about the water coming up and maybe snakes coming into my landscape or my front door and then endangering my animals when I let them out? And then think about objects that can be blown. I'll kind of talk about that a little more. And at the end of the day too, you know, your facilities, maybe property that you own, but whether you're in a neighborhood or we're out in a rural area in Newberry, you know, if my neighbors don't put away their stuff or they don't take care of their trees or their fence, if something happens, that could very well become my problem. And so that's where Taylor was talking about, if, you know, being a good neighbor now is really important, and having that communication with them, and not just thinking about your animals and your property, but man, you know, if I don't put that trampoline away, it might go into my neighbor's yard through my neighbor's window or something like that. Supplies are another huge thing you need to consider. So, you know, I have this picture from Tractor Supply that I took, and if a hurricane comes, or right at the start of the pandemic was a great example too, of you had a hard time buying some food. People were bulk buying food, emergency buying food, and that's the same thing we know that happens at Publix or Walmart or any of your grocery stores whenever a storm comes. And so can you start thinking about your food and have enough, not just for you, but also for your animal a couple weeks out? So not just waiting until you're on the last bag of food, maybe having an extra bag if you have a good place to store it, that you know it'll stay fresh, it won't get moldy, and all those things. So you also need to think about, so all animals are different, but so a lot of animals have a concentrate food, but then a lot of our livestock animals also have to have a forage. So their digestive systems are meant to be working 24/7. And if that saliva stops because they stop eating, their whole system gets backed up, and then it's a huge problem. So, you know, if you're hauling a horse, or you have a hurricane coming and you want to put them in a pasture with less forage, you may need to be stocking up on hay, for example. And then also water. You know, that's a huge thing. Are you on city water? Are you on a pump? And think about those things like Martha said. Can you start kind of preparing now, not just for you, but also for your animal? You know, I know we used to fill our tubs, and we would make that water specifically for our animals, because we knew it might not be safe for us to drink, but it could be used for other things such as the animals. And even I know we're on a well, so we really had to make sure that our generator's working and all that, so that way we can get it. But at the same time, we've also purchased extra water troughs and stuff along the way, so that when a storm comes, we can pull those out, put them in the pasture, have them fill up with rain, fill up with water, and that's just another extra source, because those are things you don't want to be without. On top of that, when you think about your food and your other things that you might need, you gotta have protection for that supplies. So, you know, especially birds and horses, they're fragile animals. And a lot of times their food might be stored on a porch or outside. And if certain types of mold get in that food, or if the food gets moist or is in a super humid conditions, it'll start to mold. And a lot of times that mold can be very dangerous for those animals. So not just thinking about the food or supplies you're gonna have, but how you're gonna store that. And then another thing you need to be thinking about now is, what repair supplies do you need? So do you need some fence pliers? Do you need a hammer, some nails? Go ahead and just start putting all that stuff together. You know, if you were to ask us right now, you know, we have a bucket with all that stuff kind of ready to go as a secondary tool, and then all the other stuff, you know, in our garage barn area where it's there. But it's really important to have those supplies in one spot ready to go, and if you can have some extras, that's even better. So the big takeaway I want you to have from this and be thinking about, and I have to ask myself as well, is if a hurricane came this weekend, you know, would you be ready for it? And I felt like last weekend we were all kind of, was it last weekend or week before here recently, whenever Laura was kind of making her way through the tropics, we were all thinking, man, is she gonna throw us a curveball and turn left into Florida? or is it going to continue another way? But, you know, a couple of days ahead, you usually know if it's coming or not. And so, you know, if it were to come on Saturday, would you be prepared right now or not? And I think none of us want to be in a situation where we are panicked and rushing and going out to get supplies. So a lot like, you know, what Taylor and Martha have talked about is just going ahead and doing a lot of these preventative things that you can do now. So I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. So there's some things that we can do weeks and months before. So right now, you know, there is storms brewing, but there's none that we know that are definitely going to hit Florida within the next week or two. But there's things that we can do. And so some of those things are preparing a first aid kit. Martha talked a little bit about that for humans, but we got to think we need that for our animals as well. And sometimes some of the first aid supplies also crosses over into, you know, animals. So, you know, whenever you're preparing that, maybe you can, you know, get an antibiotic cream that works for humans and animals. That's all on the same one, but you have to make sure you research it, that it's okay for animals before you attempt to use it. You also got to practice loading your animals in a trailer or crate. Can't stress this enough. I know a lot of people that they want to go somewhere with it and with their horse or with their cattle, and they have never put them in a trailer. And doing that right before you want to evacuate is not a good idea. I also, you know, I know if you have to put them, sometimes you have to put them in a crate as well whenever you take them to a shelter. And so like I have a friend that's moving to Turkey and in a couple of days, and she has to get her big lab into a crate. And they've been working all month on getting that dog into the crate and getting comfortable in the crate. Because we all know we want our animals to, it's already a stressful situation for us. So what are some things we can do ahead of time to kind of narrow down and decrease that stress? You want to make sure that you check your trailer and your vehicle and maintain any repairs or maintenance that need to be done on it. Are your air spilled up? Are air in your tires filled up? You know, do you need to change your oil? Is there anything that needs to be done that you can go ahead and get done now, because you don't want to be evacuating and having to worry about those things? You need to locate farms or other shelters that you can take you and your animals to. I know that was one of our questions in the chat box earlier. And for livestock, that's usually something that FDACS is really, as soon as we know a hurricane's really coming towards us, they start opening up facilities. You know, like for us, it'd be like in Perry, Georgia, and maybe in the Carolinas that are kind of north and more sheltered for us. But that's something that if you kind of keep on looking at the news, you can find. But for our companion animals, it's a little bit more difficult, especially here in Alachua County. From the current website as it is now, you essentially, you can stay in a shelter, but your animal gets turned over to animal services and is cared for the duration of the storm. And I know not all people are very comfortable with that. So that's something, you know, well, can you go to a friend's house? Can you go to a family member? Can you get a hotel with your dog? There's lots of different things, but if you have that list now, that makes it a lot easier than thinking about 2 days before the storm comes. I also found that there was this website called Bring Fido that was really helpful, and it listed every county in the state, and it had their contact information and also any shelters that were open. And I noticed that most of the coastal counties, they do have pet shelters that the humans can stay at too. And so, you know, thinking about, okay, if I move somewhere north or somewhere that's hurricanes coming to the East Coast and I can go to the West Coast, you know, are there different places that we can go? And so I found that to be a really helpful website as well. You want to make sure you have your phone numbers for all the important people on hand. Remember, cell phones are not always our friend, or technology is not always our friend during hurricanes. So you want to have those things even written down on a piece of paper. Your vet number, your farrier number, if you're going to have someone shipped, anyone that might be really knowledgeable about your animals, have all those things written down. Like Martha was talking about, birth certificates and death certificates and all the important documents. You need to have all those important documents as well for your animals. So I recommend that you have all the originals in one spot in a fireproof box, but then also have copies of that travel with them in a crate or in their trailer. We make multiple copies and spread them throughout all the vehicles in case we ever need them. Because the last thing you want to be doing is having a Coggins, which is what you need to basically travel anywhere with a horse, or a health certificate, or vaccines or anything like that done the week before the storm. You want to make sure you have all that together and ready to go. Well, no matter what animal you have, you want to make sure that all their vaccines are current. The last thing you want to have as well is being turned away from an animal shelter because your dog is not vaccinated. And some of them, you know, depending on the storm and the county and lots of different factors, sometimes they'll waive those, as well as health certificates to cross county line or state lines. But you don't want to be held up by those things if needed. And also, you don't want your dog to go to a shelter or be around other unfamiliar animals and pick up some of these really bad diseases as well. So, you know, make sure you're up to date on all those that you can be. And you see a lot of them I have for horse, but all these really transfer across in almost any animal. For ID purposes, make sure that Martha was talking about taking pictures of your home, and all that, but also go ahead and take pictures now of you with your animals or any other family member that might be, you know, having to go get your animal as well. So that way, you know, if there's any question of if that animal is yours or not, you can show a picture of, no, this animal is mine, and here's a picture of me with it. And I'll kind of go through some other ways to ID animals as well. If your animal has a microchip number, tattoo number, or brand, you want to make sure to document those as well and have those all up to date and recorded with you. You need to think about kind of how we talked about being able to store up to 2 weeks of food. So I know like we use really secure trash cans in a kind of concealed area, and that's how we go about it. And we do have 2 weeks of food on hand at any time in case needed. As well as we try to do the water if we see that a storm is coming. Another thing you can do, whenever Irma was coming, I think we were all kind of panic buying stuff, but also whenever a big storm's coming, we see generators flying off the shelves and going for super high prices. So, you know, if that's something that you can go ahead and purchase now, I highly recommend it, especially if you have animals, just because it keeps everyone a lot more comfortable. But then not just purchasing it, but then also getting it up and running and make sure you're comfortable and familiar with it as well. Repair any fences or gates that need to be done too. I know fence work is everyone's favorite thing to do. Small joke about that, but it's important to just kind of knock those things out and update them while you can. Remove any debris that will be flying around. Have a story to tell a little bit later about that. Get fuel for your generator. That's something that we've talked about in every presentation, as well as, you know, making sure you have all the supplies that are listed here with you. And then make sure too, as lastly, that you have a written down plan of, you know, if something were, a medical emergency were to happen to you or a freak accident, that somewhere, somehow it is written down on how to take care of your animal, and those important contact numbers are listed to where if someone did have to take care of your animals during a storm, they knew what to do and knew how to make those animals comfortable. So a few weeks or days before the storm, pick up anything that can become a projectile. So this is just a picture of the end of our barn. And you can see there that there's a shovel, there's roping dummies, there's ropes, there's chairs, there's a clock hanging on the wall. There's a whole bunch of small stuff over to the side. And if a big wind were to come through, all of that stuff would fly. And, you know, it can become pretty dangerous going into windows, but then also hitting animals. So my neighbor's horse, before she purchased her, the horse's name is Charlie. And that's because Charlie was in Hurricane Charlie in South Florida. And Charlie was out in the pasture, which is something we recommend for animals, but she was still hit with debris. And so she has a huge, nasty cosmetic scar across her face and quite a few on her legs. Just because someone didn't take the time to, you know, put things away as need be, or as much as that they possibly could. So a few days before, make sure you gather any other necessary supplies that you couldn't do before. So whether it's restocking feed, or filling up those water troughs and stuff like that. Charge your batteries. And then most importantly too, I see a lot of people do this. They do all the right things, but then they leave all those things in a place that's not easily accessible. So, you know, like I talked about having a bucket of tools of, you know, fence pliers, hammer, you know, different, maybe different for your household, of some basic things that you could use to make repairs, ready to go, but then also halters, lead ropes, you know, leashes, dog bowls, anything that you might need not just have it ready, but have it in a handy spot. So, you know, whether that's in your vehicle or right inside your front door, what are some places that you know you can get it in a split second if need be? So livestock, here's some livestock specific things. Like I talked about, make sure you take a picture with your animals beforehand. And then think of some ways that you can label them. I have some examples of that on the next page. Move them from flood prone areas. I don't know, did anyone see the video in Texas of them moving cattle out of Louisiana? They were moving them down the highway to higher ground. I wish kind of someone would have gotten a picture of that. So it's pretty neat to see. But that's why, you know, a lot of times, if you don't own cattle or livestock, you don't think about that, but it is a huge thing. And so even if you know someone, that's something that ranchers and farmers have to consider, is moving them to higher ground. Because I know a lot of the hurricanes, we've lost animals to floodwaters. You need to store all your loose items, such as like if you have jump standards, which are jump poles, they can be, obviously they can become projectile, have 2 weeks worth of food. Make sure you also turn off the power in your barn or garage area if needed, because that can become a hazard as well. Don't put animals where power lines are. So even if, you know, there's no trees to fall on power lines, sometimes even the wind can be strong enough to push them over. And, you know, the biggest thing is too, is, you know, people think that, and I would love to do it too, it makes me feel better, putting my animals in a barn thinking I'm keeping them safe. But unless your barn is hurricane rated, which I know some people have that, but most are not, unless it's hurricane rated, your animals are, livestock animals are safer outside. So I actually have seen lots of tragic events of where barns have fallen on animals, and it happens more often than you would think. I know Martha has seen it too. So the safest place for livestock animals is outside. So it's recommended that you keep them in pastures as much as you can, high ground, away from power lines, and good fence, and gather all the things you need. I know on this topic too, Taylor was talking about the safety of chainsaw and such, and that could have been its own PowerPoint. But I've had quite a few friends that have cut themselves being in a rush, either preparing for a storm or after the storm, being very in a stressful situation, using chainsaws and getting cut by chainsaws. So just a small note on, you know, wear your protective gear, your PPE, whenever you're doing those things, and really be careful. And even if you're not doing it, but you see someone else doing it, make sure that they are being very careful. So here's some ways that you can ID animals. And I know, you know, whether you have a dog or something like that too, you know, you can put some of these things, you know, like a keychain with your name and contact information on. But there's also things, you know, where you can braid materials into manes or tails, and then also there's livestock markers. Because the biggest thing is if, okay, if fence goes down, or, you know, God forbid, a tornado comes in the hurricane and carries something away, you want to make sure that your animal can get returned back to you. So a lot of times, like, we will write on our tags our last name and our phone number and the city that we're in, just in case something happens, that all their information is there. But something also to think about too, and especially if you're taking them to a shelter or someplace where you won't be right with your animal, is if your animal has any allergies, make sure that you also put that somewhere on the body of the animal. You know, I know one of our horses is very scarily allergic to a vaccine. And so, you know, no one would know that unless they had seen her reaction. And so think about that, is that, you know, does your dog have some allergies or some things that, you know, he definitely does not like, put that on there. So companion animals. So like I said, we have 3 border collies at home, and I could not love them anymore. And so, you know, this is a big thing when we're preparing for storms, is how can I make them comfortable and make sure that they're the safest that they can be. And I know it's difficult. So for shelters, you know, a lot of times county shelters will allow legitimate service animals to come with their owners. With that, you have to have paperwork, and even I would verify before a storm comes, call the county, let them know that you have this, you have your documentation, and that you're legitimate. so they can maybe direct you to a specific shelter as well. Make sure you have enough food in airtight containers, and if you're, leaving them somewhere, maybe even have them personally packaged into the days and the amounts too. Make sure that they're airtight and waterproof and nothing can get in them. That you have their medical records, whether it's their vaccines, when they got their shots, all of their things. Have that together for every animal, and don't just have the original, have copies. So I would say you keep the original, and then send your copies with your dog if they're going, or put them next to their crate or something like that, but have many copies. It's not a bad idea to have a little first aid kit for them, just for them with them. So like vet wrap, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. It's a great thing to have around. You can use it as a bandage for you or for an animal, and it can kind of go on any appendage. I highly recommend that if needed. A lot of shelters as well say that you need to have your collar and your leash with your rabies ID tag on it. Make sure that your crate or carrier is all set, ready to go. And like I talked about earlier, that the animal is potentially comfortable with living in that for, more than 5 minutes, that they're comfortable with living in it for if needed. If you have a cat or other animals that have miscellaneous items such as litter, go ahead and just start having extra of that and putting it aside and packaging it so it's ready to go. Have animals or things that might calm your animal. Like this is my dog Callie here. She loves corduroy bean bags. So I don't know if we'll be able to take that with us if we ever had to evacuate. But our dogs love, soft blankets. And so that's definitely an example of something I would pack to go with them. But is there any treats or bedding that would just make a better situation in an already stressful situation for your animal? And then also, Martha talked a lot about bleach for humans and for our purposes, but you also got to think about that for your animal. Hurricanes are usually dirty situations inside and outside places. And so, you might have to be in a situation where you have to sanitize their crate or sanitize an area that they're in if needed. Evacuation. So this is something that I see a lot of mistakes and people make every year. And I mean, we're guilty of it too, of waiting to the last very minute to decide of whether or not you want to leave with your animals. And the biggest thing is you really have to make that call at least 48, I would say more, even like 72 hours out. You don't want to be in that gridlock traffic with animals worrying whether or not you want to have gas or you have enough power to make it, have the AC and make it comfortable for your animals. And then especially if you're traveling with livestock and they're on a trailer, hurricanes don't happen during the winter. So they happen during the hot months. And so you got to make sure that, you're maybe even traveling at night to keep them cooler. But then also, you usually have to take your time whenever you're pulling a trailer as well. So evacuation, that's another big takeaway is that decide early on whether or not you're going to leave or stay. There's both situations, and I fully understand and respect the decision for, yes, we're going to stay and ride it out. And also, we know we really need to evacuate. And if you're able to evacuate to a safer place, that's a great option. So, a lot of times we're like, man, we made it through the storm and that's great, which I know is what Texas and Louisiana, what they're kind of facing right now. The damage is done, but in a certain sense, it's not, because recovery from these hurricanes takes a long time. And so a lot of times we just think about the structures that are damaged, and those are the things that have to be repaired, and humans maybe overcoming some obstacles that need to be done in recovering from hurricanes. But there's also some things you need to consider for your animals. So bugs become really terrible after hurricanes a lot of times because of the standing water that's around. So, for example, West Nile is usually something that really hits us after huge storms or a lot of rain because those bugs are extremely prevalent. So, are there things that even if your animals have a West Nile shot, you may have to worry about them, if you take them outside. They might need some bug spray or something like that to go on them as well. Your facility and fences may be down, so think about, can I move my animals to another location until I get them fully repaired? Debris. So, for our companion animals, a lot of times we keep them in, much more protected areas and they're usually with us. And so You know, a lot of times if things are dangerous for us, it's also dangerous for them. But then for livestock, a lot of times they're more so out on their own. And so you have to think about things like nails and screws that aren't very easily detectable. But if those get in the hoof of an animal, it's extremely dangerous and can cause them lots of pain, but also lots of problems. So think about, you know, is there a building close by that, you know, the roof flew off of it or a side came off, that maybe some sharp pieces are now laying in the grass or on the ground that I don't see, but that are there. And so, you know, those might be a problem as well. Thinking about drinking water. So, you know, before the storm, we really almost hoarded and saved up on our water. But then that's also a problem too, with it's just more standing water potentially. So if you have running water back, you may need to refresh that water by dumping it back out and filling it back up to keep the mosquito population and bug population down. And then also keeping your food and forage dry as well. So maybe, you know, you had things covered with a tarp over in a barn, but the tarp, you know, got messed up or flew away. So you may have to figure out some different things to do to make for those accommodations. So I know I feel like I rushed through a lot of stuff. And so, and I hit on particulars, but I also didn't cover in detail on some things. So if you have specific situations that I can help you with or answer some questions about, my contact information is here with my email. And if there's any questions, I would love to help answer them.
Amanda, you do have a question in there. Do shelters allow emotional support dogs, or only dogs that are classified as working dogs doing a specific job, such as guard dogs or guide dogs, diabetic dogs, fall assistant dogs?
So, you know, the diabetic dog is a great example. If it's a medical condition, from what I read in the paperwork, that counts. But like I said, I would go ahead and call the county and verify that to make sure. It's where, you know, you start bringing in the emotional support animal paperwork, that's becoming more and more prevalent, that I think you have county administrators and shelter administrators being a little bit more weary of. And so you just want to make sure that you have all your documentation, that you're already good to go in that sense. But from what I understand, if it is a medical condition, then you are, and you have the legitimate paperwork for it, that you are allowed to take it to the shelter.
Thank you, Amanda. And I think in summing up what Taylor and Amanda and myself have said, the key points are to be prepared. It's better to be prepared ahead of time than scrambling and panicking and stressing at the last moment, because when you're stressed out, you're not healthy. And you need to stay healthy during these situations. You need to stay calm, you need to stay connected, and you need to stay informed. So when you follow all these guidelines, whether you're dealing with yourself, your family, your pets, or your landscape, they all work together. And I'd like to thank my coworkers from IFAS Extension for joining me today in Alachua County, Amanda and Taylor. You have our information, our emails that you can email us questions, and we have a few more minutes. If you have questions, if you'd like to add them in the chat, you can do so. And then Taylor, if you want to close out with the housekeeping and how where we're going to post our recorded video.
Yes, so I've already put in the chat box. I'll post it again. That's our follow-up survey, so feel free to just take a couple minutes and fill that out. That allows us to get important information about the quality of our programming, so we can continually work towards improvement of our programs to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the community. So feel free to go ahead and fill that out. And this program is recorded, and I'm going to be posting it up onto our YouTube channel in a bit, as soon as I have access to it. And when you have that, we'll post it up there, and I'll follow up with an email that includes that link, another link for the survey, as well as all the additional information, including a copy of all of our PowerPoint presentations, so you have it accessible to you. So thank you all. And I think we do have a question, and I think Martha, it'll be a good one for you. You're muted.
Okay, got unmuted. Yes, you can have dry ice, but when you have dry ice, you need to purchase the dried ice. You need to be very cautious in using dried ice and disposing of dried ice. When you're handling it, you need to wear gloves. Also, when you put it in your freezer, you need to put it in your freezer and make sure it does not come in direct contact with any of your food products. So don't buy dried ice ahead of time. You need to buy it, and that's why I said know where the locations are that you can buy it right before the hurricane starts. Another thing that you can do to prepare ahead of time, if your freezer is half full, you want to cap it off. You want to maybe get some empty milk containers, anything that you can, besides glass, plastic, that you can put water in. Do not fill it all the way full. Fill it about 3/4 of the way full with water. Freeze the containers. That way that takes up space. Take newspaper, crumple your newspaper up and make that where your freezer is full. But dry ice can be safely used in the freezer. Just make sure you use caution when you handle it, and also putting it in and disposing of it, and make sure you do not touch any of your food with the dry ice.
Thank you very much, Martha. Another link I'm putting in the chat box right now is a link to our podcast. On Monday, Martha, Amanda, and we are recording a podcast that's in addition to this program. So you can have access to that. And that's, you can find the podcast. It's called Extension Cord on all your, any major provider. And as well as you can just follow us for updates, reach out to us for any current newsletters, programs, events, or activities. So thank you all very much, and we'll be here for any other questions that you all have.